Aubrey Marcus podcast. I'm here with my man, Cory Allen.
What's going on?
We've already been talking about massively inappropriate things to start. Sheep vaginas, frog skin, slippery newts,
and
hymen wallets.
And what's the most important development that we came up with?
Kidney stone engagement rings.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, to really show.
How much?
To prove how much you're willing to sacrifice for your lady. 8 carats or you ain't shit.
Totally.
That's what I'm saying.
And no farmed out, third world.
No blood diamond.
Yeah.
Kidney stones.
God.
You got
blood diamond.
That is the blood diamond. That's the new blood diamond.
It's a whole new context on that term.
You got to make your own.
I need to look you in the eyes as you pass it.
You just have the setting all made and it just comes out fresh, and you just curl the soft metal over it with the bloody bits of your urethra.
You don't want to clean it.
No, you got to keep that urethra on it.
Totally.
That's what makes it good.
Well, that's how it can also be tested to show that it's authentic.
Yeah, you got your DNA.
Totally.
It's DNA coded.
It is, because like in really patristic countries where if they, some Middle Eastern countries where if a woman isn't a virgin whenever they're married to whoever they're going to get married to, then they can be killed because they're supposed to keep their virginity. I read this awful book called Saharasia that was about all the genital mutilation and weird patrism and stuff around the world. Anyway, so I love this. One of the things I love about the human species. I hope you spit green juice all over that shirt. By the way, one of the things I love about the
what a segue to something horrible. We're just laughing. Just go straight to genital mutilation. Appreciate that, Cory.
That's just how the world is, Aubrey.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of the things I love about civilization, just humans in general, is anytime there's this pressure that builds, in whatever society that's going on at the time, there's always a resistance. Mm-hmm. That's why Japan, the more structured they are, the crazier the resistance is. So you look at their culture is super, super structured. Everyone's blah, blah, blah. But then the underbelly of it, the art scene, the nightlife is totally crazy. There's people,
right.
It's I play a saxophone with a knife in my mouth and swing a giant, chain with a 5-pound weight around my neck all the time.
Yeah, use panty vending machines. Oh, yeah. And butthole. They have places where you can go and they have a butthole eating menu, where they have a picture of a girl and just her ass is sticking out of a wall. You just look at the picture, you choose which one you want, and you go up and you eat her ass.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That reminds me of I got. Well, let me finish what I was going to say. So anyway, I love the resistance. There's always some resistance. So in that book, it talked about how these young women that were being forced to marry these guys that basically they weren't a virgin, and they could still be virgins, but whenever the dude came to have sex with them after they got married, if there was no blood, they would still kill them, even if they were virgins. And the hymen can break, of course, and I think often does prior to sex. So these old ladies started this blood underground thing. They would get sheepskin, intestines and stuff, and kind of make it really thin, and then put goat or lamb blood in there, tie it off, and then they would stick it up
WWE style.
Yeah.
Little blood packets.
Exactly. Stick it up in there. And that's pretty awesome in the sense that not what's happening, but it just shows that there is always
innovation.
A response.
Lando, that is real, right? There are blood packets for WWE, or do they really just cut themselves with razors and shit?
I think they cut themselves for real now. These days they do.
But there used to be little blood packets that they'd sometimes hide.
It's always been razors.
It's always been razors. That's so
I think
gangsters.
Gigi Allen really missed his calling, man. He should have. I had a friend that played bass for Gigi Allen, and he said
Gigi Allen?
He's the craziest punk rocker of all time. He
would cut himself and shit?
Oh, yeah. That's the intro. That's the warm-up for the show. He would get on stage, cut himself. He would shit on the stage, roll in his own shit, eat it, and throw up and eat it and stuff. He was just a mess. He ended up killing himself. He had AIDS. Anyway, he had AIDS as well. I mean, it's just, awful, but very entertaining person. So a friend of mine played bass for him for a tour in the 80s, and he was yeah, it was pretty terrible, but the one day that he was flopping around his own shit and it landed on my bass, I was I'm done here. I thought this would be crazy, but it turns out I'm not that crazy.
Yeah, there's a certain level where it's just it's just highlighting something that's a little bit broken.
Yeah, I think that the very, very tip of everything I just described is where that level begins. That's the tipping point right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So let's see. Back to the Japanese. So tell me more about these. So it's a menu with just an ass on it.
Well, so no, it's like a buffet, but they have the picture of the chick supposedly, but you don't even know. You don't know what face is actually on the other side of the wall because all that's hanging out of the wall is the ass.
It's a real ass.
It's a real ass with a real hole.
How many of them do you think are actually women?
I don't know. I mean, how quickly can you start to see some nuts? I mean, I imagine like the perineum gets pretty small.
The Japanese are very crafty, and they're also very soft. You know,
soft. That would be Japanese. They love doing those game shows where they have like 3 chicks and like one's your mother,
right?
And you like have to go down. You do like Russian roulette where you like go down on one and you hope it's not your mom. They love that kind of like psychological.
Yeah, they sure do.
People's sex around the world is so weird. It's something I talk to people about a lot. Like I had some friends in town, comedians. It was actually Brendan and Brian, and they were talking about how there was this dad who wanted to bring his like 13-year-old kid into the show, and they're like, no way. You know, this is adults only.
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, motherfuckers, that kid has a phone, and he's going home, and he's on fucking.
He has a phone and a penis.
He has a phone and a penis. Do you know what that means?
Yeah,
do you know what that means? That means there is nothing that motherfucker hasn't seen.
Totally.
He is on YouPorn, he's on all the sites every fucking night.
Yeah.
You know, like, and people are just pretending like that's not the norm. And there hasn't been anything that's come in to replace that. Like, there's been nothing to replace actual sex education from what people are learning in porn. Like, yeah, you can get some tips from porn, but it is a biased thing. It's like, I'm going to be the greatest MMA fighter all time, except I'm only going to watch World Star Hip Hop to figure out how to do that. Like, it's fine. Like, watch World Star, cool. But, you know, if you're actually going to learn the art, you better, you know, learn from somebody who's actually trying to show you some.
Right, or better yet, like learn from experience.
Learn from experience.
Instead of sitting in your bedroom being like, the more I watch, the more badass I become.
It's weird.
I'm not training at all. Just the more I know it, man. I can just feel how badass I am.
I can totally do that. But then I'm starting to see these weird ramifications where like so many people in their 20s, like full of testosterone, people killing it in the gym, you know, we'll have, you know, talks where we get real. And so many of them are so insecure about their performance in bed that they're actually having like serious sexual performance problems in their like 20s and teens.
That's so
and like
weird.
And it's this weird culture that's developing now that's like, you know, I think proliferated by this just kind of porn, slightly from porn culture, slightly from like a little bit of the hip hop pop culture was saying like, if you don't fuck your girl right, I'm gonna fuck her instead. You know, this idea that if you can't perform in bed, you're not a man. Maybe you're gay. Like maybe all of this other shit that's going around in people's head. And it's like, it's shocking. You know, it's shocking how prevalent that's become. And I don't think people are really addressing it. Like, it's not something that people are talking about. It's not something we're trying to remedy. We're just trying to say, oh yeah, porn. A couple people say, yeah, you know, porn, you know, it's not good. But there's no like real action plan of, you're not going to get rid of porn. There's not like abstinence is not an option.
And it doesn't need to be.
It doesn't need to be.
It's
not to be gotten rid of. You just have to counterbalance it. Like, if we're going to live in a world with EMFs, well then walk fucking barefoot outside. We're never going to cancel it out. You're never going to insulate yourself and live in a bubble. You know, you just have to find the counterbalance.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and it just all the expectations that like our culture especially sets up for younger people is insane. And that's why I think podcasts are so cool, is because they can kind of sometimes, not this one, but other podcasts, they can get like information where, you know, it might actually help them kind of learn and grow and you know, and maybe answer some of those questions, and also like let, you know, older people who are in their, you know, 40s or 50s or whatever that are doing podcasts and stuff, it'll help people kind of, whenever they say, hey, you know, this is the image of what, you know, life is like, but then here's the reality, and here's what I have, my experiences that have been. Kind of, I think that seems to be where, you know, people probably are getting help because
that helps.
With that,
well, shit, let me try to fucking help right now because there's probably some people listening because I fucking hear it all the time. All right, plan A. Really learn. If you're a dude, I mean, I don't know, you know, girls have their own thing, but I'm gonna talk to the men out there. Plan A, really learn how to eat great pussy. Like that is like a huge one for plan A, right? Because if you're really great at that, and then you can knock out that first orgasm just with your mouth, really the pressure's mostly off at that point, right? Because you got a largely warmed up and satisfied woman. And almost every girl I've met is definitely multi-orgasm. It's not like a man where the first time they come, they're not going to come again. So, you knock that one out. You get that under your belt, and then from there, worst case, she already had an orgasm because you were amazing at going down on her. And I've heard these girls tell stories, and that's always like, if you're really good at that, no matter what else happens after that, it's still like, cool.
Yeah, it's like I think that guys seem to think that the rules of what they're in their mind that their desire is only applies to them as far as what they want. It's like, well, women want pleasure too, and like being a caveman, you're just this like, you're this like old tree log that came to life and is just like, very barbarically just slumping away at this female, and it's like, because the organs themselves are so different, like the sensitivity and delicateness of a female body versus like the man body is so utilitarian and stupid and easy that and so. Yeah, like they want the pleasure as well. They also like, so, whenever a man climaxes, there's a receipt, but with a woman oftentimes is not. So it's like, often, you maybe talk to them, ask them how they're feeling.
You're saying your whorehouses give receipts?
Well, yeah, it's billed on your credit card as something else. On it Labs,
How dare you, Cory? Did you just call my institution a whorehouse?
Yeah, it was ONIT.
Oh, okay.
So it's
in it.
In it Labs. Yeah, but that thing about actually communicating with your partner and like asking them what they want, what feels good, and all.
Well,
I think
or skip the communication because they want you to eat their pussy.
Right.
That's
right.
like that.
I meant like during the process.
But yeah, absolutely, yeah. Opening up, not being so shy, and asking with like a little authority in your voice. Like timidity is definitely going to dry up the reservoirs.
You don't think you can pout your way into a nice romantic evening?
Not usually. Not usually. You can't mouse your way in. You got to be
far into the couch, arms crossed, head down.
For sure. And then, all right, so that's plan A. You get that on it. And then really it's all about reaching that flow state in that present moment, man. That's the fucking key. Like a performance in anything, like surfing, fucking basketball, karate, whatever you jujitsu, whatever you're doing, you got to get in flow state where you just anchoring yourself to anchor yourself to the present moment. Pay attention to the smells and the sounds and don't get lost in your head about what's going to happen. And don't worry. Another thing I hear women complaining about all the time is like, especially the first time they have sex with somebody, he tries to be hero and just pile drive.
And that's like part of the result of porn. People, watch that and like that's what they not only do they want that, that's what they need. It's like,
and there is a time when they're asking for that, but you just got to pay attention to it. You can't just.
And perhaps it's something that you ramp up to, not just all right,
just start at 100. Yeah. But yeah, man, just anchor to the present and then totally fucking forgive yourself. Like realize you're not the only person. You're not gay. You're not like not a man if things don't go right. Like shit doesn't go right.
Stupid.
It's cool.
I think the whole like, are you a man or not thing is so fucking dumb. People get so like, I've never really thought about that really. I just kind of like, I'm a weird alien. They just do whatever, do whatever do. But I hear people talk about that whole problem dealing with the manhood issue, and maybe it's because my dad wasn't around, so I had to kind of like, there was no question. It was like, all right, you just better figure this world out for yourself, Mr.
So you
Allen.
kind of had like a forced rite of passage, but I think that's another one of the things that's missing is we have no actual rite of passage where men, boys feel like they're a man. Like there's no crucible by which they can pass and test their mettle and test their will,
totally,
and then overcome something and then be welcomed into the tribe of manhood. Like there's nothing like that exists really in our culture, and it existed in every tribal culture and most other cultures. But now all the rituals are empty. It's like bar mitzvahs, like they're hollow now. The recitation of some verses that everybody forgets, like everyone 2 months after they're done, and then you do a little dance party and. That's it.
It's sort of like I've been kind of like on this warpath recently with the quote unquote spiritual movement, and
Good.
trying to eviscerate the bullshit from said movement.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, it's like there's so. I think I was talking to Hamilton Souther, you know, and he put it in a way that was really great. It was like people in our culture are using the words to describe what like spirituality or awareness means, but they don't understand the concepts. And I think that it applies to that situation too. It's like with those things, like in a bar mitzvah or whatever, these faux rite of passages we have, like graduating high school, I guess is something too, or college, what have you. It's like, yeah, you're using all the words, but the concept and the meaning isn't there, because meaning is like meaning in reality is what you create. Like the meaning of life is life itself, and meaning in your life is what you create through your actions and your subjective, you know, perception of what your life is. And so to have those rites of passage, it's like, man, wouldn't it be beautiful if you could come up with maybe there's a little thing that's laid out by your family or like your whatever part of how your community fits together, or how you fit in it rather. But it's like, come up with your own rite of passage.
Totally.
And that's where actual power and like ritual and ceremony comes from, because then you made it, you're connected to it, so therefore it's powerful.
Yeah, I sure as shit will with my kids. If I ever, end up having actual kids, then for sure.
As opposed to all these weird flipper babies even spitting out. If I have some actual kids.
If I have an actual human
my backyard is saturated with the rotting corpses of my flipper babies.
Of pretend kids. Yeah, for sure, man. And that's part of this kind of some part between Vision Quest and, Trials of Solitude, like staying out on the land for a few days by yourself. And, some of these, there's a lot of things that you can put together. I've actually thought about, working together with some people to host like a retreat where that was based on that rite of passage. But yeah, it's something that's really interesting to me, because I think that would be really valuable. And I think the psychedelic experience obviously has a really powerful way of doing that, forcing you to confront your deepest fears. It's like somehow, some way or another, you have to face an ordeal in a rite of passage. You have to come face to face with what you're made of. And sports do a pretty good job of that. War obviously does a really good job of that. And that's why I think one of the appeals of so many people becoming soldiers is like, we crave that. We crave the testing of like, man, what's in here? Like, what do I have in here? I remember, I trained martial arts my whole life, and some part of me was like a little bit weird because I'd never actually gotten into a fight. Like I've had confrontations, but I'm really good at diffusing. Yeah, I had older brothers. I never actually, but it never came into a fight. Like scuffles. Like I never actually like balled my fist and said, let's go. Even though I trained.
You had some nice brothers.
Yeah. Even though they were old enough. And my stepdad was a fucking monster. Yeah.
For years.
Yeah. So, but anyways, there's this weird thing where like some part of me like wasn't quite sure like what would happen if I'm like really, even though I've trained and blah, blah, blah. So I was training because it wasn't seeming to happen, because I don't like to street fight. I tend to diffuse those situations.
That's a good thing.
If possible.
Nice work.
But yeah, so I was training for an MMA fight, because I was like, I got to do this at some point, which was stupid because the training actually was way more damaging than any kind of actual fight I would ever get in. But anyways, in the training, I got in that street fight, and then that was like finally this box that I could check where I was like, okay, if someone goes after my girl, I'm going to respond in this way. And at least I know that thing about myself now, but before it was like a weird question. I'm not saying that everybody has to fight, but there's just certain boxes that have to get kind of checked, I think, for a man to really be kind of comfortable in his manhood.
Right. It's like, and it doesn't, maybe even fighting doesn't have to be violent per se.
No.
But it can be like, how are you whenever shit goes down? Like, what do you like under pressure? And that's how you figure out who you are. It's the same thing with like, it's not like a forced thing, but whenever you have a friend that's going through like a really tough time, or if you're going through a tough time, the people that will talk to you about it and like check on you and make sure you're all good, that's how you know who your real friends are, man. Yeah. And it's the same. It's kind of like a different type of cultural examination.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I've had experiences like that too, where in life where it's like you kind of like black out and then come back to after some crazy extreme experience, and you're like, all right, I think I think it's sweet. Now I know that if that happens again, I'm going to be all good. Yeah. I react very well to pressure and stress.
And I've been around like special people who have like an instinct that's even superior to others, like the hero instinct. Like my friend Roger Huerta was like that. He was an MMA fighter. in situations where shit happened and the instinct is to freeze. Like I remember, it's not like a totally serious event, but we were at this house party, and there was a setup. They'd set up like a tall stripper pole in the house party, right? And this girl,
that was a great idea.
This girl climbs to the top, right, and she's swinging around, and then as she's swinging, the base becomes unstable.
Of course it does.
Right? Yeah. Right. So the base becomes unstable, and it was totally in slow motion, right?
Yeah.
We could tell that the thing was like tipping over, and there was 8 people around, and all of us were just like, oh no. And he just like, the only one to move, just goes up, reaches up, and just grabs it.
Nice.
And I was like, oh man, how about that instinct? Like, it's just weird, like in situations, and I guess like my stepfather was on the SWAT team, and he talks about that. You have to train, or like Tim Kenny, you have to train that impulse to take action when shit goes, because your instinct is to freeze. Like I remember another story. I was in Australia, and this dude was trying to do a trick where he was lighting, I guess he knew how to light Bundaberg rum from the nozzle, and then it would go out by the time it hit his mouth, and that was his trick.
It's a wonderful, wonderful showing. What a nice showing that guy has.
So he tried it, but it was with overproof rum. So it was like 110 proof rum instead of the normal 60 proof rum.
Uh-huh.
So
are you telling me a gentleman, a gentleman who's offering to the world is lighting rum and having it go out before it falls in his mouth, did not have the foresight to check and make sure that the rum that he was selecting for this trick was appropriate? Interesting.
That's exactly what I'm telling you, Cory.
Interesting.
So anyways, he lights the overproof rum, and the overproof rum is coming out of the bottle, does not go out. So
instantly, shower myself in fire.
Yeah, his mouth fills with flames. He spits it out, and then the flames get all over his face. So it was like straight up Hellraiser. Like his face,
quick, put on this leather jacket.
His face was on fire, right?
Dude.
So we're in the kitchen. There's 5 people around. Most of his like close friends. He was just kind of an acquaintance, friends with some of my other friends. So there was a couple good options. Option A would have been to grab a towel and put it over his face. There was like a dish towel.
Yeah.
There. Option B, which is what I chose, was I turned the faucet on, and I just started like splashing water at his face. Right? Not the best option. I don't think it actually helped at all. And he's like running around. And option C was to do absolutely nothing, which is what everybody else did.
Right.
Was just like, your face is on fire.
Yeah.
It's a funny fucking thing, man.
It really is. It really is, man. I found myself like in a multitude of those situations, particularly whenever I was younger, and my reaction, I always like, I don't know, I always had like the Matrix reaction to it, not to sound like that guy, but I always had a really calm, like, just, well, this is happening now, and so what will happen next is like this,
right?
As opposed to being like,
right.
But I think that it's probably, meditation probably has a lot to help in that situation, because really what it is, of course, is it's like your reptilian and mammalian brain take over in a situation like that, and you just turn into a panicking animal.
Yeah.
But if you have like, obviously the lower parts of the brain are the launch pad for higher consciousness. So if you work backwards, you work on your higher consciousness, and thusly you will begin to control your reptilian part of your mind. And so therefore, whenever those things happens, you can just be like, all right, that's already like programmed to be present. Be present, and then instead of getting bowled over by the moment. Yeah,
that makes total sense. And I think different situations can create different things, like emotionally charged reactions or a different type of situation. Sometimes that spins people up. I tend to get really calm and like very focused in those
murderous.
ones.
I tend to start sharpening knives.
But and then that's why I think conflict resolution is something that comes really easy to me, because I can like not get aroused by other people's emotions. Unless some people have the ability to arouse my emotions, triggers and things. But yeah, it's interesting. But that's, I think, such an important part of life, is putting yourself in disadvantageous positions and seeing how you respond, and then learning from those, and then just forgiving yourself for anything that goes wrong. Like, maybe you didn't react right in the fight situation, or maybe someone insulted you and you wished you would have had something good to say. Like, don't beat yourself up about it. You know, just be like, oh, okay. Maybe I didn't respond like Cyrano de Bergerac that time, but next time I will eviscerate him with my rapier wit.
I'll have my quill ready,
and
I'll write the most brutal taunt he's ever heard in his life, and I'll seal that up on a scroll. Deliver that shit right to him.
That invective will cut him to the quick.
I'll slice you to pieces with my quill.
Yeah, exactly. Funny, man.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that stuff is, if anyone's under the illusion that if you fuck up in a situation like that and you're the only guy or the only person on this planet that's ever faltered or had a problem in that, whatever that situation is, and whatever the context of that thing is, you're sorely mistaken.
Yeah.
Like, we are all just stupid. Your biggest hero, the idol you can think of, has probably done way dumber shit and responded way worse than you could ever imagine.
Right.
But that's one of the things that, like, that sometimes those type of failures make somebody great.
Yeah.
Because
totally.
you got to see the bottom in order to know how high the top is sometimes,
It's just about your attitude upon it happening. Like, it can either cause this trauma that puts you in a shell. Like, I'm so afraid of that thing.
Yeah.
You fear it even more. So you're even more paralyzed.
Totally.
Or if you choose that option of like, that was funny. My human reacted weird in that situation. Let's try and transcend that on the other side.
That's how I think. Oh, the human is acting weird right now. You better go get this human tuned up real quick.
Yeah, exactly. And just that's just the way to look at it. People they get too attached to that identity of who they are and defending this certain identity. I'm tough. I'm a great lover. I'm this. And you feel like you have to defend it when all of that is just nonsense. You're just you.
Yeah,
and
it's like the ego feeding thing. Where it's like, I'm tough. It's like, is that right?
Yeah.
Have you gone to West Africa?
Yeah.
How tough are you now? I've watched a lot of MMA, not the prelims or anything, but I've watched a lot of the title fights.
Totally.
And man, I'm pretty badass.
I use the Tim Kennedy analogy all the time because he's perhaps the toughest man on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Like Delta Force sniper, tip of the spear, top 5 ranked UFC fighter. So bare hands, guns, knives, whatever. And he comes into the gym in silly little yoga shorts and a big old smile, and he's like the happiest, calmest, person ever, just kind of cruising around. And he never tries to act tough. Never makes anybody feel like intimidated or shows off his, toughness to anybody.
Totally.
Like, because he's it.
And then that's
he's
like intellectually too, like that was, man, whenever I was younger, oh boy. That's like that thing of people who hit the gym all the time and they walk around like, bowed up and tough and whatever, bumping into people on purpose in a bar or whatever, just to try and start some shit. Well, I did that intellectually whenever I was younger,
Sure.
It was like I had the, like a muscle head, I was like a muscle brain walking around trying to show everyone how I could, slice and dice and, show everyone how smart I thought I was.
Yeah.
Until, you experience things where you realize you're not as smart as you think you are, and also you're just being an asshole. And it's defensive. Really, if you boil it down, it's the defense mechanism. Because if every person you meet that you show them how tough you are or how smart you are, obviously you're not comfortable with yourself, and so you're trying to
build that identity up.
Totally.
One thing I've been kind of playing with is this concept that in this spiritual movement, so many people talk about finding themselves, right? And it's like, it sounds like a good idea, like find yourself, but really a lot of that is just replacing one identity with another identity. I don't think there's any way to actually find yourself. You are yourself.
Right.
You're just yourself expressing in myriad different functions. And I think it was spurred a little bit from this, I was reading the Toltec Art of Life and Death, Don Miguel Ruiz's books, one of the, the masters that I really learned a lot from. And he had some guy come to him and talk to him. And this guy used to make everybody laugh. And that was kind of his thing, right? And he's like, I don't know who I am. I just feel like I'm a clown that makes everybody laugh. And Don Miguel says, well, it's not good that you make people laugh. Mm-hmm. Like, that's fine. Like, you are you. Like, stop worrying about who you are really at the core. I'm this, I'm that. All of those are just identity games. You are you. At this point, you're making people laugh. At this point, you're sitting quietly in contemplation. At this point, you're eating. At this point, you're fucking. Like, identify with the force, not the identity.
Right.
And that's so huge. I think that's one of those like core fundamental principles. Like, don't just replace your identity as this thing with your identity as this new spiritual or other thing. Like, just be the force. Do what you want to do. Like, be, movement and action embodied.
Totally. That's like that from Middle Eastern kind of folklore, the Nasruddin character, where he's like a real goofball, right? He's just kind of like, his bumblingness is what, was kind of his, it's like Schwanza in the Tao, and he was running around, all over saying, "Where's my donkey? Where's my donkey?" Running around, and all over all the villages, and the whole time it's on top of his head. It's like the very thing that you're running around looking for is just like, boom, it's right there. And that's like, that's what it is when people self-identify. It's like people, I think, because in a Western culture specifically, we are taught to, in order to obtain something, you need to purchase it, or you need to grasp it to have it. You need to have the object. It's like, I have some books by authors that are signed that are like really, really just, unbelievable. And sometimes I'll think about how funny it is that I just have those sitting on the shelf. It's like, I got it, I got it. It's like, so, okay, And so it's like, we just have to, you just release the fact that, like, what you are, is what you are. And like, you are a lot of things, right? And then especially with the spiritual thing that I've been dealing with lately. By the way, I was talking to Raghu Marcus a couple of days ago, the guy that is the head of the Ram Dass Foundation. And I asked him what word he used instead of spiritual, because I've been asking that to people recently, because I'm just curious. And he was just like, I don't really have one. And we kind of talked about the being locked in semantic constructs with words like God and love and stuff like that, and spiritual. I asked Daniele Bellelli that as well, and he said, spiritual opposed to what? And I was like, I love you. And so but one of the things that I'll find is that people will and you can look at it like, where's the net gain and the net loss in this, and that's definitely something else to be deconstructed. But people look at the first person that they observe that is what they identify as, like, quote unquote spiritualness and like an awakened mind is. They start emulating that thing because they're like, oh, that's what awakeness is. So if it's Thich Nhat Hanh or Alan Watts or Chogyam Trungpa or whoever it is, they're like, that's what it means to be awake. And so they start talking like that. They start sitting like that. They start using the same kind of metaphors and language and all that stuff. And you get extreme cases. Like sometimes whenever I see, people wearing, like Tibetan monks, eating in a cafe on Congress or something, wearing the full robe and all that stuff, I'm kind of like, you don't gotta wear that robe. It's not like super cool. You don't get superpowers from wearing the costume, man. Or it's like.
It's an identity thing.
Exactly. Or it's like people that talk about, well, in order to be, I just have my mala beads in the grocery store while I'm, buying groceries, just saying Ram, 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 Ram over. And it's like, dude, I think you're missing the point. And,
unless the grocery's really stressful for you.
Really, really, unless you're Whole Foods downtown on 6, that's a stressful place. I could see it there.
Agoraphobia.
It's like you're getting so lost in the method. You're getting so lost in the idea, and it's a subjective idea to begin with. Yeah. Instead of getting down to the nuts and bolts of what all of that should actually mean.
Yeah, the mimicry is something that I have a real issue with. Like, I'm going to Burning Man for the first time this year, but my initial exposure to these Burning Man parties is slightly horrifying.
Right. Yeah.
Because what I see is like people wearing the Burning Man costume, but not embodying it in their heart.
Yeah. Again, that's the,
like they're in the fucking straps and the leathers and the steampunk and the fucking unicorns are everywhere. But like you're looking at them, you're like, what the fuck, man? Like you're wearing the costume, but you're not like bringing that presence to bear. Whereas someone in fucking jeans and a shitty t-shirt can like really convey.
It's Tim Kennedy.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Exactly.
It's with spirituality. And it's like, that's like with Alan Watts. He's one of the huge figures. I like to use him as an example because they're like, oh, well, he's like one of the baddest dudes ever. His books changed my life. It's like, yeah, he is. And you know what he was doing whenever he wasn't writing those books? He was banging all the wives of the guys that were at his seminars, and he was hammered like 24/7. Like there's some, and that's not bad. Like that's just, I mean, people got hurt, and that's bad. But that's what he was. Yeah. But he was also this other awesome thing, And it's like, so that awakened mind, that spirituality thing, Chogyam Trungpa was the same way. He was hammered all the time, trying to get orgies going on, and like burning people's belongings and stuff. But still, he was still also working with the nuts and bolts. That's like one end of the spectrum of what some of that stuff is.
Yeah.
As far as like, you don't have to be like on a Sounds True recording, you don't have to sound like that, in order to have some of this information.
Exactly. And anybody who's being your mentor or teacher or healer or whatever, who's trying to tell you to do that is being parasitic.
Totally.
Like anybody saying, oh, you have to act like this or do the same thing, or only I can teach you this, or only I can heal you. Like I've really become aware of some of the, parasitic nature of a lot of even healers and different people. Like the healers that there can be a healer that says, come to me and I'll heal you. And that's like, okay, if they're actually really doing a good job, it's like, but that's still only the base level. Like a really good healer, like a master, is always going to, show you how to heal yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, and then like the real mystics are always going to remind you that you're already whole.
Right.
Like that's the hierarchy. And so often you'll see these kind of base level parasites that are gathering followers, be like me, think like me, do like me, and then you'll have salvation, or, come to me and I'll absolve you of your sins, and I'll, you have this ghost and I'll free you of this ghost, but only I can do that. And I've seen that happen. I've seen people close to me like get locked in these paradigms, and it happens in the medicine space, where like, I've seen it in so many different cultures. Like, oh, well, I have this special crystal and I'll do this extraction of this dark energy. And maybe one day when you're a master, after you pay $100,000 through all my courses, you can trick other fucking people in the spiritual Ponzi
of spirituality
Ponzi scheme bullshit. Like that's the, truly at the fucking base level. There's a lot of that, parasitic behavior,
and that's part of like in dealing with something that's intangible. You're going to get that because you can't hold it, and so you're going to get these vampiric people that come around. But that's like the secrets of, I joke about the secrets of mind, right? Like one of the secrets of mind is that as you said, you're already there, you're already whole,
totally.
You're already awake and completely, like enlightenment is a thing to obtain. It's a direction, right? So you're already there, and we're born into a completely awakened state. But the fact is that when we go through life, all this shit gets packed into us, and we start clinging and holding all this stuff, and we get further separated from what we really are based on our experience and culture and position. And the thing is not grasping. The thing is releasing.
Yeah.
The thing is unpacking all that shit and getting open and getting negative space again, so you can actually think and be aware, So it's all like letting go. And it's counterintuitive to people who think that you have to buy something or buy whatever to obtain a result. It's like, no, you're already there. You have to just get over and let go of all your shit to get the result. And the lighter you are, the easier you float, right?
Yeah, totally. It's like we're made out of memory foam. And all of these aspects of the world are just like compressing upon us, and we're getting these weird contorted shapes, And we think that it's part of us, but it's really just contorting our actual shape.
You gave me this weird image of like an MMA fight, and the dude, like the Anderson Silva leg, bam, and when it breaks, like instead of a bone coming out, just some of that green foam.
Yeah, totally. Just memory foam, and it's like, oh fuck, we gotta fucking
get some
stuffing,
some string and a needle.
Good combination of semen and blood will clear that memory foam right up. That's what I do with the mattresses.
Get some baking soda, some salt, some semen and blood.
It makes a coagulant. Fixes memory foam every time. Especially if a sprinkle of feces in there.
There's some weird voodoo going on in your house. I need a chicken bone, a wolf eye, a newt heart.
Let me put my menstrual blood clot mala beads on.
Yeah, go get specimen 36 out of the deep freezer. All right, you want to drop this idea on everybody?
Yeah, man.
Do it.
So Cory and I are throwing around putting together a duo podcast where we go out and talk to other people, bullshit with each other. Separate from our own podcast is one idea, or maybe combined forces is another idea. But we love talking and hanging on the podcast. We know we get that feedback from you guys. So for those of you listening, hit us up on Twitter. Let us know what you think of the idea. A third podcast, is that too many podcasts, or would that be rad? Or should we just try and collaborate more on each of our own podcasts?
Yeah.
Or whatever y'all think.
Yeah, what do you want? You want guest appearances? You want us to guest on each other's with other people?
Yep.
You want us to be our own? Do you hate both of our podcasts? Why are you listening to this right now? What is going on? Explain yourself.
How'd you make it to minute 46 with just sheer hate? I fucking hate these guys. The stupid pricks.
Someone's using it to
Fuck
trade
them.
in the gym. It's like, dude, you're sparring at like
It's just
95% right now. What's up?
Just replacing Pantera in their headphones. Fucking hate these guys.
Dude, I meant to tell you last time we were talking about Panteras. I've seen them live like 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
So rad.
Amazing.
So I mean,
So some dude came up out of the stands and just knifed one of the guys.
Shot
right?
Dimebag, yeah. Shot him. Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
That's savage.
Especially his brother on drums, saw it. Like seeing your brother get shot in front of you while you're playing that's unbelievable.
That's super
Poor
intense.
guy.
Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah.
And what happened to Prince?
He died.
You don't know? You don't know through the musical ether? What do you think?
From what I've kind of what I've read is basically he was. There's a lot of it's like all this hearsay. Sheila E. says that, who I guess was a friend of his, said that he had this like hip replacement, I guess a while back, or some surgery like that.
Yeah.
So he was taking like Percocets or Oxycontin or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he was on that flight, that was like 48 minutes from landing on his private jet, of course. 48 minutes from landing at his home, his home airport, whatever he's got.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's got some purple. It's all purple lights, guys with purple velvet lights waving people in.
Just hot ass bitches.
Afros, yeah. And so the velvet runway, just glides.
He's got no wheels on his jet. Just slides right in.
So they diverted the flight, and so because they said he had the flu. And so I don't know what's up with that. And then unfortunately, it seems
you don't
like
divert the flight for the flu.
Yeah, especially 48 minutes away from being at home.
Yeah.
And then they said that they found him in an elevator, basically just dead in an elevator in his own house, which that's pretty dope to have an elevator in your house.
Right.
But it seems like he kind of drug overdose from opiate overdose.
Man, those rock stars just that hard living. They're like flames that burn out a little early.
Yeah. Yeah, Prince was one of the first earlier things that I heard, like growing up.
Yeah.
It was my mom listened to
Prince and Michael, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Prince, Michael Jackson, Elton John, all that stuff.
Elton's still rocking it.
Dude, I was actually just talking about this. Is like, David Bowie's dying, Prince died, and all this, and I'm like, man, I think that Elton John is going to be around for like another 150 years.
Yeah.
That dude
There's a couple
is
that make it,
so
like
badass.
Steven Tyler, Mick Jagger.
Yeah,
like a couple make it out. And you're like, what's different?
I think the Grim Reaper is too scared to approach Elton John. Him just all puffy in his tracksuit, all coked to the gills, still probably.
We don't know that. That's hearsay.
We don't know that. Hearsay. Allegedly coked to the gills. I think he's probably off the blow now, but man, he's still got the attitude, and he takes no shit from anybody.
That's awesome.
Man, is he awesome.
Well, shit, man. It's good talking with you as always, my brother.
We did it. Let us know. What do you guys think?
Hell yeah. And please follow Cory's podcast. He's got awesome guests.
The Astral Hustle.
Awesome. The Astral Hustle.
Really weird.
We'd expect no less. And sign up. He'll be selling his own blood clots.
I will be selling my own blood clots soon. Yeah, it's great.
Stones.
Aubrey's on there. Oh yeah, that's
bone
coming.
spurs.
That's coming.
Pieces of Cory. Yeah, own a real bits of Cory.
I'm taking some calcium powder as soon as I get home.
High doses for years.
Yeah.
That's
also, a quick Onna ad. Aubrey just gave me some of this MCT oil. As
Oh,
a person
sure,
who
snap.
drinks his body weight in coffee every day, this is delicious.
Yeah, man.
I love it. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
It's awesome.
Brother.
Check it out.
The strawberry in the coffee is a weird idea, but when you actually do it in practice, it's pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to even
can't go wrong.
Yeah, strawberry emulsified MCT. And for all you ketogenic dieters out there, it's all keto approved. You're all set to go.
Nice.
Keep those ketones flowing, baby.
Yeah.
All right, much love, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.